You know that quiet, that really profound rage you feel when you find your almond milk stolen from the office communal fridge?
Oh, I mean, the absolute betrayal.
It's just the worst.
Right.
Well, imagine taking that exact petty misery, that specific crushing realization that the social contract is just a total lie, and setting it to a 115 beat per minute funk bass line.
Which is such a wild concept on its face.
It really is. So welcome to today's deep dive, everyone. Our mission today is to dissect a 47-minute concept album titled simply BUNDT.
Yeah, and we have the full track list in front of us, complete with lyrics, tempos, and, the full sonic profiles.
Exactly. And I want to be clear, this isn't just a record review. We are exploring how a piece of music takes the absolute most frustrating, mind-numbing parts of our daily routines and just turns them into this funky, surreal, and deeply analytical auditory experience.
It's an incredibly layered piece of work. What we're going to trace today is how this album uses highly specific production choices and rhythmic structures to map out a complete psychological arc. It literally takes the listener from the claustrophobic grip of workplace microaggressions all the way out into the American highway and ultimately lands in this deeply strange meditative finale.
Well, I want to start with the sonic blueprint, because before you even hit play on track one, the album gives you a massive clue. The full subtitle of the album is "I Knew You Were Coming, So I Baked a Bunt."
Right.
And the source notes we're looking at explicitly drop this hint. They say, "Got cake, get BUNDT."
That is a very deliberate flag for the artist to plant. I mean, for anyone who remembers the alternative rock scene of the late 90s and early 2000s, the band Cake had a highly distinct, fiercely specific sound.
Oh, totally.
And BUNDT is wearing that influence proudly. I'd say almost aggressively on its sleeve.
Yeah, if you've never been down the rabbit hole of indie funk or like spoken word rock, the best way to visualize this genre is imagine someone delivering a brilliant, deeply cynical TED Talk about the failures of modern society.
That's a great way to put it.
Right. But instead of a clicker and a slideshow, they are backed by a super tight 1970s funk band and a remarkably aggressive trumpet player.
That analogy holds like perfectly. And if we look at the comparison between a classic Cake album and what BUNDT is doing here, the parallels in the production are striking. You have this stripped back, incredibly dry production style.
Let me pause you there, actually, because the dry production is something I noticed immediately, but I want to understand why it matters for this specific album. Like, why not use reverb or echo to make it sound bigger?
Oh, because reverb implies space, romance, and grandeur.
Right.
Reverb is the sound of a cathedral or an empty canyon.
Sure.
Dry production, where the instruments sound exactly like they are playing 2 feet from your ear in a carpeted room, implies stark reality. It sounds like a fluorescent-lit office.
Wow, okay.
It leaves absolutely nowhere for the ego to hide. When you pair that dry environment with prominent rubbery bass lines driving the melody and heavy reliance on the 𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗔𝗧𝗧𝗏 as a percussion instrument, you get a sound that is fundamentally grounded in the mundane.
Okay, I have to ask about the 𝗧𝗧𗧃. That rattling, wooden, vibrating sound. I mean, it's iconic, sure, but isn't it just a bit of a quirky gimmick? Like a sonic novelty tie?
It can be, yeah, in the wrong hands. But here, the 𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗏 functions almost like the rattling of a cage. It's a very anxious, mechanical sound.
Right.
And over all of this instrumentation, you have the vocals. The narrator isn't singing. It's this witty, deadpan baritone delivery. They aren't trying to serenade you. They are lecturing you. Or perhaps just observing the world out loud with a heavy dose of exhausted irony.
Which brings a lot of focus to the actual instrumentation, particularly the trumpet. Because as I was going through the sonic profiles, the trumpet is listed as the album's most critical, recurring musical motif.
It is, and it's vital to understand how it functions. The trumpet isn't just there to provide a pretty melody between verses. It acts as a sarcastic punctuation mark to the narrator's deadpan observations.
Yeah.
It literally changes its personality to fit the neuroses of the specific track.
Like it's a secondary character.
Exactly. In a song like The Linoleum Curator, which deals with corporate despair, the trumpet plays these bright, almost mocking melodies. It sounds like forced corporate cheerfulness.
Ugh, I know that exact sound.
Right. But then, in a track like Master of the Ring, which is this frantic 140 beat per minute orchestral disco track about the hyper-competitive world of dog grooming.
Dog grooming, of all things.
Yes. The trumpet delivers these sharp, dissonant stabs. It is practically barking at the listener,
Mhm.
perfectly matching the anxiety of the lyrics.
It's like the trumpet is the narrator's subconscious just reacting to the absurdity of the systems they're trapped in.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
But that raises a structural question for me. We have this distinct, dry, funky sound, and we're jumping from office politics to highway rest stops to dog shows. How does Bunt prevent this from just feeling like a random sketch comedy album? Like, how are these disparate vignettes tied together?
The answer lies in a very specific underlying structural choice: the rhythm.
Right, because as I was mapping out the tempos for these tracks, a really strange pattern emerged. Several of the major anchor tracks on this album, specifically Service Plaza Rhythms, the splicing block, and the Merchant's Arc, they all share an exact tempo.
Yep.
115 beats per minute.
That number, 115 BPM, is the thematic core of Bunt. And to understand why, we have to look at how tempo affects human psychology.
Okay.
A normal resting human heart rate sits somewhere between 60 and 100 beats per minute. A euphoric high-energy dance track usually sits around 128 BPM. So 115 BPM is caught in this really uncomfortable middle ground.
It's too fast to relax, but too slow to actually let loose and dance.
Precisely. It is the exact speed of a brisk, forced march. Or, more accurately for this album, the speed of a turning gear.
Oh, interesting.
It creates an audio landscape where humans and machines are forced to move to the same relentless, indifferent pulse.
And you really feel that mechanical indifference in the lyrics. Like, take Service Plaza Rhythms, the narrator is standing in an interstate rest stop, describing it as brutalist and beige.
Yeah, such vivid imagery.
And the people around them aren't humans with souls. They are just, quote, temporary neighbors by the condiments, giving a mutual nod over the salt sachets.
Right.
The song explicitly calls this 115 BPM groove the rhythm of the interstate.
The album is constantly blurring the line between human behavior and mechanical processes. You see that perfectly executed in the splicing block. It's a post-punk funk song about a guy physically cutting magnetic audio tape.
And he's obsessed with the mechanics of the tools. Like, he talks about using an industrial razor, single-edge carbon steel, and making a perfect 45-degree diagonal cut.
Yeah, he says he wants a clean separation.
Right. And the 115 BPM pulse in that track literally mirrors the sound of the tape rollers and the physical click of the splicing machine. The tempo is the glue connecting the isolation of the highway to the sterile environment of the workspace. And if the office is the epicenter of that sterile environment, I feel like that's where we really need to start tracking the psychology of our narrator. The album kicks off its narrative arc in the modern corporate workspace, which it refers to as the architecture of refusal.
That brings us to the Linoleum Curator, which is arguably a masterclass in capturing petty workplace rebellion.
The imagery is suffocating. I mean, the narrator is sitting in a three-sided cubicle, which he simply calls a cage, sitting under a fluorescent light that is humming a flat B natural.
Which is such a specific, annoying detail.
It really is. And what is his grand rebellion against this soul-crushing system? He adjusts stapler exactly 3 degrees to the left. He aligns his pens by color and weight. He calls it creating a geometry of paper clips and a monument to nothing.
It is the ultimate expression of trying to manufacture control in an environment where you have absolutely none. As the lyric goes, we are optimizing the void today.
Right. But I found myself pushing back on this character a bit while reading through these tracks. Is this narrator actually a victim of the corporate machine? Or, by hyperfixating on these tiny, irrelevant details, are they just becoming a petty tyrant in their own right? Like, they seem kind of insufferable.
Oh, that friction you're feeling is entirely intentional. The album wants you to question the narrator's reliability and their mental state. And it addresses that exact tension in the track we mentioned at the very beginning, the meniscus drop.
Ah, the stolen almond milk.
Right. The narrator takes a Sharpie, writes their name in block capitals on the plastic jug, and calculates the exact rate of theft.
Yeah, noting it is 2 inches lower than yesterday.
Exactly.
But the musical arrangement here completely threw me off. The album abandons the 70s funk setup entirely and shifts to classical instrumentation.
Yes.
It opens with a plucked pizzicato cello and this really sharp, aggressive harpsichord. Honestly, when I first heard it, I thought, wait, Baroque cellos over stolen milk? Isn't that just a pretentious gimmick?
I can see why you'd think that.
Why does that actually work without turning the whole album into a joke?
Because it forces the listener to experience the event through the narrator's distorted perspective. To us, it's just a splash of stolen milk. But to the narrator, whose entire world has been reduced to the boundaries of a cubicle and a fridge shelf, it is a grand betrayal.
Wow.
The Baroque instrumentation frames this petty squabble as royal court intrigue from the 1700s.
Like someone plotting an assassination at Versailles over a dairy substitute?
Exactly. The narrator even imagines the thief digesting the milk at the water cooler, calling it a biological theft occurring in real time beneath an ironed polyester blend shirt.
That is so dark.
It really highlights how the narrator's desperate need for boundaries has completely warped their sense of reality.
The subjective reality versus the objective absurdity. And that facade completely cracks in the track. Fun.
Right.
And you? The coffee break itself is described as this sterile, forced performance. The break room is a stage. Everyone is a terrible actor. And they're all just reciting the exact same lines. How was your morning? Doing great, fine, and you?
It's incredibly claustrophobic.
It is. You can feel the narrator vibrating with the need to just run away. And if the office is a cage designed to suppress you, you'd think stepping out the door and getting in a car would feel like ultimate freedom.
You would think.
But the album doesn't let the narrator off the hook that easily. Driving away just introduces a totally different kind of mechanical dread.
Right. The narrator trades the geometry of paper clips for the geometry of the highway grid. We transition out of the dry funk and into these dusty Americana and folk rock tracks.
I was really struck by the lyrics in the inventory. The narrator is driving a dusty 1994 Volvo wagon, pulling into a lonely gas station in Salina.
Such a great track.
The air is thin, it smells like pine, and they encounter a clerk named Earl. Earl offers what the song calls a slow-motion miracle of random items. 3-year-old road atlases, heavy flashlights, and pickled eggs in brine. It's delivered with this wry, observant deadpan over a solitary fingerstyle acoustic guitar.
But notice what is missing from that interaction. There is no actual human connection.
Right.
Earl just rings up the total, states the price, and waits for the cash.
Yep.
They are 2 points on a graph that intersect for a transaction and then never meet again. It's a profound, hollow isolation.
And it isn't always a quiet, peaceful isolation either, because if the inventory is the lonely sigh of the escape, White Hot Knife is the brutal, sludgy reality of the physical commute.
Yeah, that track is heavy.
The tempo drops, the bass gets incredibly muddy, and the guitars get heavily distorted. The narrator is literally dragging a small cardboard box home in the blinding heat, the sun bouncing off the rearview mirror and burning their eyes like a white hot knife.
Yeah.
They are out of the office, but they are still trapped in the middle lane, still stuck in the same skin.
Which sets up what I think is the absolute psychological climax of the album, a track called The Stuck Cut.
Oh, I really want to dig into the psychology here because the tonal dissonance is extraordinary.
Let's unpack the musical language first. What is the sonic profile doing?
Well, it is using the musical language of 110 BPM mafioso boom bap rap.
Yep.
It's gritty. It has this heavy, luxurious swagger to it, complete with these sharp, dramatic trumpet stabs. The narrator is talking about stepping through the steam in gator skins, counting silver quarters, smelling like a new shipment. It sounds like the setup for a tense, high-stakes street deal in a 1990s crime film.
But the reality of the physical scene they're describing.
Right. They are standing in a depressing laundromat trying to buy a bag of salt and vinegar chips from a vending machine. And the bag gets stuck in the metal coil. It's just dangling there. The lyric is, suspended in midair like a bad debt.
It's a brilliant satire of modern ambition and capitalism. I mean, instead of just shaking the machine or getting frustrated, the narrator applies this bizarre, high-stakes, street-level logic to extreme mundanity. They say, a boss doesn't rattle a cage. He waits for the next man's coin to push his own ambition through the gap.
They treat a stuck bag of chips with the exact same gravity as a federal indictment. But, like, why? Why project that kind of malice onto a metal coil?
Because for this narrator, everything is a transactional system. And in their mind, the system is always rigged. It is psychologically easier to believe the vending machine is a malicious mob boss shaking you down for the tax, rather than admitting the universe is just random, indifferent, and occasionally your chips get stuck.
That makes so much sense.
Right. If the machine is malicious, it means you are at least participating in a game. If the machine is just a machine, you're just a guy staring at a coil in a laundromat.
The world is just a series of mechanical interactions constantly withholding what they owe you. So how on earth does a person de-escalate from that level of constant paranoid tension? After fighting the office and fighting the highway, you would expect this album to end with some massive, distorted explosion of rage.
It deliberately, and I'd say quite beautifully, does the exact opposite. It powers down. This initiates the third and final phase of the narrative arc, the meditative descent.
The shift begins in a track called the Oil of Hands. That driving 115 BPM pulse that has been marching us forward, it's completely gone. The tempo drops all the way down to a slow, gentle 75 BPM.
And notice what happens to the production. All the cynical, dry funk strips away. We're left with a warm, melodic bass line and a breathy, mournful trumpet.
It's gorgeous.
The narrator isn't out in the world anymore. They're just sitting alone at night in a quiet kitchen, pressing their palms against the cedar grain of a table.
It feels like the first time on the entire album we're seeing genuine vulnerability. Like, the narrator isn't calculating theft, they aren't aligning pens by weight, they are feeling the oil of hands that came before, acknowledging the ghosts of their parents and the iron latch of the door and the copper handle of the sink. It's a total surrender to time and memory.
And that surrender is absolutely necessary to reach the final destination of the album, the grand finale, 𝗧𝗧𝗪𝗪.
If we look at how 𝗧𝗪𝗪 is constructed, it is a radical departure from literally everything that came before it.
Completely.
The funk is gone. The guitars are gone. The driving bass is gone. We were left with minimalist avant-garde. There is zero percussion. It is just the deadpan vocal delivery spoken over a lone, haunting, syncopated trumpet.
And the perspective completely fractures here. We are no longer in the narrator's head, at least not as a human being. We are looking at the world from the point of view of a single grain of silica resting deep in the fibers of a heavy velvet carpet.
It's like zooming in on a Google map so far that the chaotic city streets, the traffic, the buildings, they all completely disappear, and you're just left staring at the empty, gray, abstract pixels of the pavement. The stress is gone because the context is entirely gone.
That's a fantastic way to visualize it. I mean, the lyric describes this grain of silica as a flaneur of the heavy wool carpet, observing the room with a grainy indifference.
Wow.
It casually discusses the political leanings of a brass doorknob and watches human shoes pass by like giant ships in a harbor.
It represents such a profound philosophical shift. Think about where this character started. They were frantically trying to control their environment,
Right.
adjusting a stapler by millimeters, writing angry, territorial notes on almond milk, feeling the literal crushing weight of fluorescent lights.
They're trying to hold back the chaotic machinery of the world with a paperclip.
Yeah, exactly. But by the time we reach 𝗧𝗪𝗪, that frantic, desperate need for control has vanished. The narrator has evolved or perhaps dissolved into a state of total peaceful detachment.
They're no longer fighting the machinery. They have become the smallest possible particle, just turning slowly in a draft of air. They have finally found peace in being perfectly still and perfectly indifferent. Finding beauty in the dust rather than fighting it.
That is quite a journey for 47 minutes of music. And what BUNDT ultimately achieves is reminding us that there is a weird, funky, deeply analytical poetry hidden in the most frustrating, mundane moments of our day.
Absolutely.
The petty rage we feel over the fridge, the exhaustion of the commute, it's all material. It's all part of the human performance against the machine.
It just depends on how you choose to tune your ears to the rhythm of it all.
Which leaves you with a thought to mull over as you go about the rest of your day, likely listening to your own music or just going through your own routines. We've spent this time analyzing how one artist assigned a tempo and a rhythm to the crush of daily life. So if your own daily commute or your morning routine had a BPM and a designated lead instrument, what would it be? And more importantly, is it time to change your tempo?